We are joined by Mr. Jay Cameron, Litigation Director at the Justice Centre for Constitutional Freedoms. Welcome back to Forum Daily, sir.
Thanks, Nima. Thanks for having me on.
So what extensive powers has Health Minister Tyler Shandro had under Bill 10 for the past 10 months in Alberta, sir?
They're really extraordinary. It's unprecedented in the history of Canada. But what has happened is that the legislature has delegated its authority to one person, and that's the Minister of Health, under the provisions, one of the provisions of Bill 10. And so anytime during a public health emergency, the Minister of Health has the power to unilaterally, without consultation with the legislature, amend any law on the books of Alberta. And basically the only restraint is that he can't create a new tax. So there are hundreds of laws on the books in Alberta, just like there are in any other province. And one person has the ability to remake those laws if he thinks it's necessary in the public interest to do so. And so it's an extraordinary power.
Now, that's really interesting considering that the Public Health Act already allowed officials to have extensive powers in the event of a public health emergency. So can we highlight that? What kind of regulatory powers fall under this act in particular, excluding Bill 10?
I think that the public was generally unaware of how scary a piece of legislation the Public Health Act was, just because it's not typically utilized in the way that it has been utilized. And I think that there's an arguable point there that it has been utilized incorrectly and too broadly anyways. But some of the powers that already existed in the Public Health Act involved, this is section 52.6, if your audience wants to go check, to have the power to take somebody's real or personal property, to forcibly enter somebody's house without a warrant. And then there's this one. The cabinet can order the immunization of any person, and that's section 38, subsection 1. And so those provisions have been on the books for a long time, and especially some people are concerned about that forced immunization provision.
And what was the UCP government's official reason behind the passage of Bill 10, considering that they already hold a majority government?
Yes, it's very interesting. I mean, of course, power is very attractive, and when there's an opportunity to take some more, few people can restrain themselves. And so the official reason was, well, we need to be able to make laws on the fly. And so what they did was Minister Shandro actually introduced Bill 10 into the legislature on March 31st. It came into force on April 2nd, and he is the recipient of this enormous power. And incidentally, he has said that he's going to give it up. Of course, that hasn't happened. So in 48 hours, this power was brought in. There was some objection from the opposition saying this is undemocratic, it's unprecedented. But I mean, by and large, I don't think that most MLAs understood what this law was. I don't think that the public had any idea. It was just rammed through. And so, they've said that they're going to give it up, but of course they could repeal it the same way as they brought it in, and they haven't done that.
All right, Mr. Cameron, a little over a minute left, but let's get into the current legal challenge that was put before the court on Monday. Can you give us a quick update on how that all panned out?
Right. So there were two preliminary applications. They've been heard now. The Justice Centre applied for public interest standing to challenge the law. And the Crown brought an application to strike the action, saying that there was no cause of action. We're waiting for decisions on those two applications.
And is there any way that maybe concerned Albertans can maybe add their voices to this legal challenge, Mr. Cameron? About 30 seconds left.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if you're concerned and you live in Alberta, what you should do is call your MLA and tell them that this is unacceptable and that these provisions are scary to you and your family, and that they're contrary to the Constitution, and that you object to them. And that you intend to voice your objection at the ballot box. The other thing that you can do is you can exercise your rights under Section 2C of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms and peacefully assemble to protest these measures.
All right, Mr. Cameron, thank you again for your time, and we'll be right back.